I think it's really important to be loyal. And we have preached loyalty with A's Cast Live here for a long, long time. And I have the utmost loyalty to my favorite satellite host. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay my kids' college tuition because I pay for my XM every single month.
It's always looking for a handout, aren't you, Tony?
I can always, I'm making sure my kids might have to go to community college, but I still get Mike Ferrin every morning.
You'll be glad to know that there's a very good community college system in the state of California. So you're in luck.
Well, because all my money's going to you because how much I love your guys' program.
Well, I appreciate that. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing, nothing going on here. How about you?
Yeah, not much. Everything's fine. Just real quiet.
Yeah, real quiet. Just, just a little rough start of the season. But as they say, it's early. It's early.
Right. Yes, it's a long season. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
I really don't want to get into the whole Vegas thing because of how much it hurts our fans. But just from what you have heard from a national perspective, we're not running from it. It is what it is. We're going to talk about it. It affects all of us. It affects us personally. It affects all of our friends, our coworkers, all of our fans. But just from a national perspective, when people are looking at the Oakland A's and all, what are you hearing? What are people saying?
I mean, I think for the most part, people are very sad for Oakland sports fans in general. I mean, when you figure, especially when you factor that this is three teams in the last decade that have left Oakland, left the East Bay. I think that's number one. I think those of us who know really appreciate Oakland athletics fans because I think they are one of the most unique groups of fans that you're going to come across. They are gritty and funky and fun and love the game and love a team that I think at times doesn't feel like always loved them back. And so I think that's a big part of where the discussion is right now. I think there's a lot of finger pointing that has gone on towards, I think most of it directed towards ownership. I think there probably is some that is, that needs to be directed at the way that negotiations dragged on over the course of nearly 2 decades with the city and the county and the state as well. But in the end, I think it's just the overriding factor is sadness, right? And like the people that really, the ones who always get hurt the most in the divorce are the kids, and that's in this case the fans, right? And so A's fans are the ones that really suffer for this in Oakland, and it's not fair to them. I don't think. I mean, I think this could have had over the course of the last 15 years, dozens of different outcomes along the way that would have gotten to a place that not only would have kept the A's in Oakland, but given them a new stadium and given their fans hope that their team would compete consistently at a level commensurate with the market size.
Yeah, it's tough for me because this is not my first rodeo. I mean, I used to work for the Raiders. I've lived this before. As I try and tell people, I was on the last ever Oakland Raiders flight coming back from Denver and got to see everybody say goodbye, knowing that it was it. So I understand sadness. I understand but I also understand the business of it. And when you're about to lose your third team, there's got to be some accountability, but it's not something that I want to get into now. I just want a little bit of your guys' perspective. When you start looking at where we are with the game as we're looking at the first couple weeks, and a lot of people are saying, okay, how do we see the new rules? We're seeing certain teams. Here comes Cody's Pirates. Hey, are the Rays that good? Oh my God, are the Cardinals that bad? So just your kind of look as doing a national show every day. What are some takes that you got here for the first couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pitch timer has been pretty successful at doing what it intended to do, which was increase the pace of action, at least to a spot where we were 10 years ago or more. The stuff that Sean Foreman's group at Baseball Reference has kept track of shows that the time between balls in play, I think, is the shortest in the last 15 years, even though the strikeout rate and walk rate are largely unchanged. And so I think that speaks to just the fact that the game has sped up, and the game times are closer to when we were kids, Tony. I mean, you got to go back to 85 to have game times like this, but this is what we grew up with.
I heard 81.
Maybe. Yeah.
I was like, hey, I mean, this guy wasn't around. I was 9 years old in 81.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, I was 5. I mean, so like I think this is actually really exciting because I think it is hugely important that baseball got a hold of that, even if none of the other things. I mean, I think, having more hits because of the shift restriction, or having the pitch timer meaning more balls in play, or having the bigger bases lead to a ton of stolen bases, which wasn't even something in the league office until Theo came up with that idea, just kind of mentioning it offhand. I mean, the bigger bases were designed for safety first and foremost. Like, I think all of those things were largely wish casting, although, stolen base attempts are up per game, but just to levels that they were in 2012. I mean, I think all of those things are positives, just in the sense that we are getting the same amount of baseball action. It's just packed into a tighter product. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit for people with busier lives. I mean, it's really hard to commit 3.5 hours a night, 162 nights a year to a game. And I think what's incredible is that I believe it's still the case, unless it's changed in the last couple of days, that this season there has been one 9-inning game that's gone longer than 3.5 hours, and that was on opening day, the Cardinals and the Blue Jays, which was like an 11-10 affair. Like, that's been it. And last year it was like 3% a game, something like that. So I think it's a huge, huge change. It's a huge, huge difference. And I think it's been, beneficial. And I think more people are starting to show up to the ballpark and starting to tune in as a result.
I can talk about my household. I got teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're 17. And to them, going to the game for 3.5 hours, I mean, we can sit here as guys that love the game. We're in the industry. No matter what the time of game we're going to watch, we're going to consume the game. But to the average person, 3.5 hours, they don't even want to be in a movie theater for 3.5 hours. No one wants 3.5 hours. Now my kids this season are like, Dad, we want to come back to the ballpark. My kids are cool. If it's 2 hours, 15, 20, they're cool. And the reality is these are the fans. We already got the hardcore people. We got to bring the other people back in or get them into the game.
But I think for those of us, though, that live and work in baseball, right, or those of us who are intense baseball fans, you know what we get to do? We can actually consume more baseball as a result. 2.5 hour games, if they're starting at, like, if you're fortunate enough to, say, work from home and have the TV on or the radio on in the background, and you've got a game, on the West Coast starting at 10 a.m. and another one at 1 and another one at 4 and another one at 7, like, you're probably going to make it to the end of all of those, right? Like, those games are all games that you're going to be able to consume. I know I can watch a lot more as a result. And I think what we're seeing is fans stay to the end of games. And I was actually watching a little bit of the Angels broadcast last night, and Mark Gubicza was talking about that and how many people were still there in the 9th inning for Angels games now compared to where they had been over the last 10 years, because they don't have to go running out of there. Yeah. I'll go back to last year. I was doing a week of games in Omaha in AAA. And one of the things they said about the games there is the games going quicker meant that on Sundays, when they did a kids run the bases, after the game, when they had a 5:00 Sunday start, if the game was ending at 8:30, there were no kids to run the bases. Now everybody was getting a chance to do it. So I think in stadium, on TV, on radio, everywhere, it's just led to a better product.
Well, speaking of your play-by-play career, we haven't talked to you since all the WBC stuff. You were the voice of the WBC. You were the Vin Scully.
I'm no Joe Davis, I'll tell you that much.
Every single time I turned on the channel 89 on XM, it was you doing play-by-play. I mean, for your career, that had to be special.
It was really, really cool. I mean, I think we talked during the WBC, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think I was sitting in my hotel room in Miami at one point, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it was really neat. It was, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I got to do it. It was so much fun to be a part of it. It was a really special event. And, it's the next one comes up in 3 years. And I would put it on your baseball bucket list if you haven't attended, because especially if you can get to a spot where there are a number of Latin American teams. I think if there are people who are listening who've been to winter ball games or watching who've been to winter ball games, they understand a little bit of what it's like, but there's just a different joy and energy in the ballpark. And that, to me, was the part that was most appealing to me. I mean, it was people who really loved not just their country, but loved baseball. And so all of that was really fun. It was a tremendous event. We were fortunate that we got some I mean, just incredible games, right? Like
Yeah.
that was maybe the best part, was that the games lived up to the hype. And then that makes my job easier, right? Because then it's like, as an announcer, you're up to, like, you can't screw that up at that point. So they managed to idiot-proof it for me, which I was really grateful for. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was one of the coolest things I have done and probably will ever get a chance to do.
Yeah, you sound a lot better in a close, exciting game than a blowout. I don't know why.
It's amazing how that works, right? There are a couple fewer stories, I think, that get told in that. So, and remember, we didn't have the pitch timer. I also thought it was a great advertisement for the pitch timer that you've got the spring training games going on while the WBC games were happening.
All right, so a couple things, and we're seeing it because everybody's got to put out the first part of the season. What are we seeing? And we've gotten to see the Rays as they whooped us for a few games. That's not saying a lot, but we actually got to see. Very, very impressed. A lot of people don't want to buy in. It's like there's something that baseball people have something against the Rays. I don't know what it is. Why do people want to constantly not – winning's winning. You can't take back their wins. You can't take back their home runs. You can't take back the pitching stats. I mean, they're leading all these different stats. You can't take it back. They've already done it, but everybody still wants to not believe. They want to take shots at them. What is it with baseball, the establishment, and the Rays?
I don't know that this is Rays specific so much as it is nobody picked them as the favorite in the division, and they knew how difficult the American League playoff race was going to be, and we're still just like an eighth of the way through the season. So that's where I think it probably comes from, more than just because you can't slam the Rays. I mean, they're in the playoffs every single year, right? Or nearly every year. They run, and my partner on the radio, Jim Duquette, said it this morning. They basically are a masterclass in roster construction on a yearly basis, right? I think it's been an incredible story. It's been really fun. You know, like we were invoking the '84 Tigers yesterday, which is, you know, they started 35-5, and I don't think the Rays are going to get there. I didn't think before their loss last night they would, but it starts to. You start to imagine things, right? Like it really touches your imagination when you're thinking, okay, well, how few games are you going to lose over the course of the first quarter of the year? And in the expanded playoff format, I mean, it really means that a lot of their heavy lifting is done. They've banked 20 wins to this point. If they end up winning, 70 more games or something. I mean, if they win 70 more games, they might end up winning the division. If they win 65, there's a good chance that they're in the playoffs, right? So I think that's the part that's exciting about it, is that really, it's not that you can go and print your playoff tickets now, but you have to feel really good about the Rays and where they are. The cautionary tale is always like fast starts don't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have strong finishes. And that division last year, you may remember the Yankees got off to an unbelievable start and were on pace ahead of the 98 team. And the second half looked a lot different to them, right? So that's the part, is that I think in baseball, because the season is so long, we're just trained to wait for the other shoe to fall. And I think it's less about not giving the Rays credit and more about the fact that we still know that there's, this ain't football. We do it every day.
I did it last year. So the A's were in Yankee Stadium in late June, and we get these notes every day, right? And I was like, I am so sick and tired of reading this crap every day about the Yankees. They had this, the Yankees hadn't been this hot, and they had all these different years at the Yankees, 35 and 40, the DiMaggio or the Mantle Yankees and all this kind of stuff. And I did it right here on this show. Cody I said, get the tape ready. The Yankees will not be in the World Series. I guarantee it. There's so much one way to win, home runs. Someone will take them down. They will not be in the World Series. I was just angry at the time, but I was right once again, because they have not been to the World Series since 2009. But it's like these hot starts, especially with a team in the Northeast. They'll start telling you about, the last time we saw this, they won the World Series. I mean, it's like,
well, it's crazy. Like, compare it to what happened to Boston in 2018, where nobody was on that team, like, for most of the year. I mean, it was finally at the All-Star break. Everybody starts looking up and going, wait a second, they got a chance to be pretty good. And then you get to the end of the season, and it's like they won 108 games, right? Like, that's one of the best records in baseball history. So I don't know that it's necessarily that. I think a lot of it has to do with this was the Yankees that had, gotten off to this great start, and you have the Judge story throughout the course of the summer. And so in the second half, they were beset by injuries, and it was a little bit, they had guys that were way overperforming early in the year, like Trevino and Tyler Falefa in particular on the offensive side. It's a little bit different Yankee team. And I think if you watch them right now, like the second half of their lineup is pretty thin. They're a pitching and defense squad. Their defense has been great at this point. Yeah, well, they were running last year too. They were stealing bases last year too. I mean, that was the other part of it. But they just don't. They're not. This is not the Bronx Bombers so much as they seem like they're trying to build a complete roster. Although I'll tell you what, the second half of that lineup is a little thin, and they don't look like right now, because we pick a series each week to kind of lock in on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series, and this week was Twins Yankees. The Yankees offense right now is a way more aggressive offense than we're used to seeing from the Yankees. And so that leads to days like Monday and Tuesday where the Twins had starters that were in the 50s for pitch counts as you got to the fifth inning. And it also leads to days like today where Ken Maeda didn't have any command and they just smoked the ball all over the yard, right? So it's a lot of inconsistency in there when you have a super aggressive offense. I mean, you guys know. I mean, you've watched how the A's, when they're at their best, have been teams that have ground out at bats, right? Just grind it. And that's not that Yankees team right now, which I think is really interesting for this year. Well, because I don't know how they get to that. Like, even with getting Stanton back or getting Harrison Bader back into their lineup, I don't think that necessarily solves some of those things that they have going on.
Yeah, see, I am the ultimate sweetheart to my guy. I mean, when I listen to that portion of your show, when you guys pick the series and your producer picks the same one to watch as Jim Duquette, I mean, you're all over. You're harsh.
Eddie? Yeah.
Harsh.
Eddie deserves that, though.
I mean,
I would never do that to Cody.
I mean, Cody is like, he's like a unicorn walker. He's like Ohtani walking around here with his ponytail.
I'm on cloud 9. The Pirates are 16-8. I can't.
Do you believe in his Pirates?
I think they are on the right path.
Oh, come on!
That's.
Do you believe in his Pirates?
That's layman's terms.
No. Oh, you break a baseball man's heart. Come on, the guys are waiting for you.
They're moving in the right direction. I'm a big Ben Cherington guy. Always have been. They have talent that's coming. They're going to get Dylan Cruz with the number 1 pick, and that dude. Like, I just saw him again this weekend. I just had LSU Ole Miss on Saturday again, and like Dylan Cruz is legit. Like, he is the real deal. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a superstar, but he's going to be like a way above average major league regular as a center fielder and go to all-star games. And he's a difference maker. And the Pirates are going to have him too. Like, yeah, they're going to be really good. And don't say hopefully, because they're going to take Dylan Cruz because he is a no doubt 1-1. It's not like they're going to play the years that they've played that game where they try to spread the money out is when there isn't the no doubt 1-1.
So you're saying you're making this trip to the Bay Area. You're on your way. You just end up in Fresno and you never get to the Bay Area. Is that what you're saying for the Pirates?
Yeah, basically. It's like you get sidetracked in Fresno.
You're Fresno.
It's okay. They're building a bully in the NL Central.
Speaking of Fresno, they are. What are they? The best chance to run down your Spartans in conference this year? San Jose State leading the league.
Well, our guy Brad Sanfilippo is tearing things around there in the world.
Taking all of Chris Townsend's money and putting it to good use on the facilities.
We paved the path for this greatness. What we paid back in getting our ass handed to us by Phil Nevin and Mark Kotze at Cal State Fullerton when I was there, and Jason Giambi at Long Beach State, back when we were the Big West, by the way. That's how old I was.
Well,
we paved the way.
I noticed you've gone to a more modest conference.
Things have changed since the 90s a little bit. I let Kotze know.
My problem is that I can't get Franzen to shut up about it now. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna win the Mountain West. We're good." Like, thanks a lot, Kev.
Hey, and then next thing you know, here comes football season, and we're gonna knock off USC week 1. You heard it here.
Write that one down too, Cody. Pull the tape on that. We're going to want to make sure that you have that for football season.
I'm going on that trip with him, I think. So I'll just experience it firsthand.
Isn't it great? All these kids go, what does he mean by mark the tape? Yes, there used to be reel back in the day when Mike Ferrin and I first started in this business. Are there anybody out there that you're like, oh boy, this is a This is not a great start. It's early, but it's not a great start.
White Sox, 100% the White Sox. That is
Cardinals.
Cardinals I'm a little less concerned about. I mean, I think I am concerned about the Cardinals starting pitching because they just don't have a rotation that misses bats, but I think they're going to be fine in the end. It's a little bit softer division. With the White Sox, it just is not going well pitching-wise. Offense, I think they had the worst 4-game stretch offensively that they've had in the modern era. I think it was 11 hits over the 3 games in Toronto. It's something like 15 hits in their last 4 games. And their pitching hasn't been very good either. I mean, and you have their president of baseball operations coming out and saying that he's very concerned. And Kenny Williams yesterday to the Chicago Sun-Times that he said, I'd be lying if I weren't worried. That's the one that I think is right now the team that I would be very concerned about is the White Sox. But the other ones, I mean, it's still early, right? It's April. And listen, even the White Sox at 11 games under 500 could turn things around. I mean, I'll never forget the year the White Sox won the World Series in 2005. The Astros that year started 15-30. And they ran the front page of the sports section of the Houston Chronicle had a tombstone that said "R.I.P. Houston Astros" on it, right? Like this was the end of the run, and they ended up winning the National League pennant. So there's it's not easy. It gets late early around some of these places, but the White Sox basically have to play at a 95-win clip from now to the end of the season in order to get into the postseason mix. That's going to be very difficult to do even in the Central.
Kenny Williams, Oakland native, former Stanford baseball and football player back in the day. And I, kind of joke about our buddy Bob Melvin, they need to figure out how not to get shut out so much.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like the offense still hasn't clicked. Soto hasn't clicked with the Padres. I think they're going to be fine. I think once Tatis gets rolling, which could happen, at any moment. I mean, the guy hasn't played a game in over a year before coming back last weekend. I think things are going to be okay in San Diego. That division's a little tighter, right? The back half of the Dodger lineup isn't as good as it has been in the past. A few more questions of the rotation. The Giants are okay. I don't think they're great, but they're good at mixing and matching and getting the most they can out of their offense. And their starting rotation is good. The Diamondbacks are interesting because they're young in the position player group, although I'm not sure that their pitching is quite ready for prime time. So it's a little different division than they've been in the last couple of years. But I really think that Padres team is going to get going at some point.
Go ahead, Cody. You're concerned because Cody, if you offer Cody $440 million or something like that, Cody's taking it. Juan Soto, no. Cody, you're worried?
I'm worried, Mike. He's hitting 188. What is it, like 220? If he's hitting 220 as a Padre, I think. This
is now not a small sample size dating back to last year. And then all my buddies in San Diego, they've kind of had it with Juan Soto.
I understand. I'm still not worried. How old is he? 24?
When do you get worried? When how many
24,
how many months do you have to go not hitting your weight to where you get worried?
I'll wait. If he is on July 1st and things don't look good, then I'll start getting concerned.
Okay, we're on the July 1st watch. All right.
Yeah. Mark the tape.
All right. Listen to your show. Zach Neto, who we're seeing here. I know you're a big fan of. Big fan, because you know why I know? Because I listened to your show.
Well, I have brought him up a time or two. He was one of my favorite players in last year's
Neto
draft.
is your guy. Our broadcasters will call him Neto last time. Like, it's not Neto, it's Neto.
Well, I'll tell you what, his career has a chance to be really Neto.
Ooh, look at that. See, that's why he gets paid the big bucks on satellite.
How do we kick this guy off?
It's like him and Stern.
Hey, what's this I hear about, like, you pitting me against Johnny Gomes in a leadership match?
Remember yesterday before we ended the show, we were talking about, you're like, leader of men, Johnny Gomes. I'm like, I'll take Ferrin. Because we're promoting our guests.
We're dealing with a lot of stuff. I don't remember everything. What were we doing?
You're promoting our show for.
I was promoting Ferrin as my favorite host.
He was promoting Gomes, and then I was
promoting Gomes first. Yes, today's TV day. I'm doing TV the next 2 days, doing the A's pre and post game show on TV with my man Johnny Gomes.
That's my guy too. Tell Johnny I said hello.
How do you like the background here at the studios at NBC?
Beautiful.
You like that?
Very nice, yeah. It's nicer than I don't have the background that I had the last time I was on, which was just a picture of you.
So yes,
I'm still trying to find my get into the San Jose State archives to get my Chris Townsend photos for the backdrop.
when I think about Johnny Gomes and 2012, he was the leader of one of the most unbelievable baseball years. No team has never not led the division. The A's never led the division ever because they didn't win the division until the final out was made and the season's over. So what he has done in his career, you think about Boston, Kansas City, going to the World Series with the Rays, everybody will talk about, a leader. And you never know who your leaders are going to be. Leaders, as they say, not made, they're born. Johnny Gomes is truly one of the great leaders in baseball I've ever been around. And I know you feel the same.
He's one of the smartest baseball people I've ever met, ever. Like his just understanding. He changed the way left fielders play the wall at Fenway. Do you know that? Do you know that story?
No,
ask him about what he learned about playing the wall at Fenway, because he changed the way left fielders play it in 2013. He noticed something about how you should play the ball at the wall there. And he probably, I would guess that I don't know if it's assist total in front of me, but I would guess it was probably 5 or 6 times over the course of the year that he was able to cut down a runner trying to stretch a single into a double because of something that he noticed that nobody else had.
Not even Carl Yastrzemski?
Not that I can I'll tell you what it is, but Johnny can tell you better. I mean, he would play directly under the wall. The idea being if the ball clanked off the wall, it's going to bounce back to the infield. The guy's getting second base anyway, shortstop's behind you. But if it comes straight down, you've got to play.
And the wall's pretty dead.
There are dead spots on it.
Just goes, duh. Kind of like the parquet at the old Boston Garden.
Right.
Guys would dribble and the ball wouldn't come back up.
Right.
This is what I said. I said, if I'm going to war, I need a general. I want Johnny Gomes. If I'm going to have a great dinner and I'm trying to find the restaurant and the menu, I'm going Mike Ferrin.
I think you're underselling my leadership skills.
I just don't see
I
you.
can almost read a map.
I don't see you on a tank leading everybody into battle. I see you finding a good happy hour.
No. I'm a true leader. I will send everybody else into battle and stay back for a meal.
But am I wrong?
That's what leaders do. They let everybody else get in the way.
If I'm in the Valley of the Sun and we need a place to go, I'm asking you.
Exactly.
You're the king, my friend. It is always a pleasure. Thank you for always supporting us. And once again, I support you with my pocketbook.
Well, I appreciate that, and it is great to be on with you guys again. And shout out to the Last Dive Bar crew, because I know they're listening, so that they're the best.
And you've been carrying Duquette for years. Let's just
now mark that tape, Cody. Let's get that.
Be well, my friend. We'll be
listening. See you
guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Mike Ferrin, he is outstanding. One of the best hosts in all of baseball. Sirius XM.